What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Nightmares Podcast, where we talk about all things horror, film, music, movies, and in this case, other horror podcasts, because we're not selfish and we love to have other podcast hosts on our podcast, which is always great. And we have a new awesome person to the podcasting game. This lovely lady is Mar. If you want to be so kind to introduce yourself and tell us all about yourself in a quick intro.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm Matt. I'm a horror fan, like everyone here. And well, I'm a horror promoter. I started with a little website, talking to people, making some connections, and it slowly grew to a bigger ship. I ended up making the podcast, having all the platforms, all the community, and here we are. That's the the main summary.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Mark, what we do is we always start with one question in particular, and it kind of leads into a lot of different things. Is when did horror touch your life? When did you first become a fan, and how did this whole crazy horror journey begin for you?
I think when I was very little. I've always been a very lone person. I mean, I've always been that weird kid, that's always alone. And I mean, I've never been a very people person.
Mm-hmm.
I love people, but I've always been very introverted. And as a kid, the one of the books I can remember reading is, I mean, it seems a cliche, but it's Dracula. And I remember that being a kid, I found it terrifying in some ways. Like when the doctor says that she's so thin and so sick that it seems that her teeth is growing, and these kind of things I remember that were very impressive to me when I was a kid. And I think that was the beginning, like feeling that my world has some kind of way out, and I think that was the first path towards horror and discovering new things.
Nice. And what were those new things? What were some of these films or television shows that really caught you as you were growing up?
As a show, maybe as a kid was things like Tales from the Crypt.
Of course.
It's another cliche, but here in Spain you don't get much horror. So until you're a grown up and you can search things by yourself, that's what you get. And I had also another show that I loved that I have never found anyone that have watched it too, which was Transylvania Pet Show. That it was an amazing show, yes, and about a guy having a pet store and monsters in a monster town. And I think that from there I can jump to my 13 years old, that an English teacher played the ring at class. That was my first. Yes.
That's an education I would have been like to be a part of. How about you, Zach?
Yeah, I would have loved my teachers to show the ring in class. That's awesome.
That is pretty great.
Yes, I was terrified for a year. I saw the girl from the ring in every corner for a year, and I think that was the portal to horror. Like this is once you have overcome that fear, this is a huge portal to very cool things. So I can say The Ring at 13 years. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I know a lot of us have a lot of horror bringing up and everything else. Like we've had the pleasure of interviewing another international guest today as well, and I'm very curious. How does horror? We have the United States experience. So how does horror play in Spain? How does it, how is the community? Is there a community out
Oh,
there that actually has some type of support, or is it kind of non-existent? Or, how does the culture blend? Because there are some Spanish horror movies. I mean, I've seen a couple on Shudder, and then obviously,
hmm,
Italian has a lot of influence as well. But I've
yes.
seen a few Spanish, a few Polish. So I'm curious on like what your experience is like growing up in Spain and being a horror fan. How did that whole
Mm.
work out?
Yes. Okay. In Spain, there's this situation where there are horror fans, like metal. It's something similar to metal fans. There are a lot of people that love it, but there's no community. You have nowhere to go.
Mm.
Um, and that's a problem. Like here, there's no conventions, no nothing. If I want to go to a convention, I have to take a train to Germany. No, it's there's no community here. That's one of the reasons from TBM we're putting together to a website to open doors to Spain, precisely for what you're saying, to create a community here, because there's nowhere to go. There's a lot of people that love horror, but they have nowhere to go. It's like the books. Where can you get horror books? There's nothing. There's only Stephen King. Nothing against the Stephen King, but it's the only thing you can get in libraries. That they're missing out lots. Also, there's a problem here that most of people can speak English. And that's a problem in regards to getting to international content.
Mm.
Like, that's the thing I'm facing opening TBM to Spanish content, is that it's not a matter of translating it, it's a matter of collecting the content available in Spanish.
Mm. Interesting.
So, yes, that's the main problem, which doesn't happen with metal because music is music and people just love it, even if they don't know what they're saying.
Yeah, I love Rammstein, and I don't speak German, so there's that.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Zach's a huge fan of Rammstein, so I mean he gets it. The
Yes.
Yeah, but unlike you, I've actually tried learning the language.
No, I've had no interest. But I'm curious too, maybe even more intimate. As you were growing up and you were getting interested in some of these the literature of horror and some of the fan of horror. How was the reaction of your immediate family, and then and your maybe extended family? How did that play into effect? Were they fans, or was it kind of not really a thing in the family?
I'm the black sheep. I've always been.
Mhm. I can appreciate that.
I I don't have anyone physically around me that can understand that I like horror, even metal.
Mm.
I've always been completely alone in here. Yes. It's yeah.
The so do they that's okay, we're all that's why you hang out with people like us. So
Yeah.
the so I'm very curious, like so they just is it, don't get me wrong, like this, and you heard us talk about this with Damon about how the horror community is kind of already looked down upon by mainstream culture in a lot of ways, even though mainstream culture
Mhm.
does love it. The so I'm curious, is it kind of like a thing of like with maybe family, and then also the population at large, is it a thing of that's grotesque and strange and I don't want to be a part of it, or it's more of an attitude of oh well, that's cool, that's your thing, but like that's not most of our things. I'm just curious about how the public's reaction to the horror over there, because it's a learning experience for me to learn about how other countries perceive horror, because I can only speak from the
Yeah.
United States perspective.
Yes. I think from here it's just like I don't get it, but I don't care. That's the main spirit here. Because what I find very interesting is that Europe, and especially Spain, should be a master in horror, because we are thousands year old. We have lots of paranormal history. I'm next to a 1,000 year old castle. We were masters at burning witches and at torturing people. I mean, in the medieval era. I mean, we have lots of blood and horror on our shoulders. And precisely, it's one of the countries that don't want to, they don't absolutely care about it. Imagine when I interview people from Ireland or the UK, they all say, I love Gothic. I'm so influenced by Gothic. Why? Because they have these old buildings, because we have this old history with us, all these stories about ghosts, about people here, all the stories, even the kids' songs go about hell and demons. My kid 2 days ago said, "Hey, we have a new song at the school for Christmas." And all Christmas carols here go about demons and hell, all of them, for kids, Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
It's like getting a copy of the Necronomicon. The Necronomicon for kids.
Yes. And she started singing. She said, "Look, listen, listen." And she started singing something like, "You demon, that they didn't even want you in hell. You tried to escape through my room's wall, and you left the horns in the wall because you couldn't fit." That was how the song started. And I thought, they don't even want you in hell. What did you do?
Pissed off somebody. No, I love that, and like I mean, like the Ring Around the Rosie is based on the Black Plague. A lot of people
Yes.
don't know. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, we all fall down, as in we all die.
Yeah.
The
Which is very pretty.
Yeah. Tragically pretty is a better word for it. So that's very interesting that like there isn't a lot of culture there, and it's just more of an attitude of like did we lose you? Okay, we got you. It's more of an attitude of, well, that's just weird and it's not my thing and I don't want to do it. That's what the Western world does. We don't do that here, but I find it very interesting.
Yeah.
Have you ever tried to make that point to people and be like, oh, I don't understand why we don't have a lot of horror here. We have all this history and this Gothic influence, and Italy has no problem with doing it. So why are we the only Latin-based place that doesn't have? I mean, there's a lot of horror movies that are made in Mexico, and then also in South America. So one of my favorite horror movies of all time was filmed in Mexico. Was from Dusk Till Dawn, one of my all-time favorite vampire movies. So I'm just curious, have you brought up that point?
That's an amazing movie.
Oh, it is. I love that movie. It's my favorite vampire movie. So I'm very curious on have you had discussions with other people in your country and your culture and made that point to them, saying, I don't understand. We have all this amazing material, but we're not using it. And what has their response been if you have?
Yes. Yes, I have. And actually, the most of people, they tell me they're scared of it. Which I think it's a very interesting thing to explore, because here, like 50 years ago, everyone was very religious. Like Catholicism, was here full engine, like making everyone think that they were going to hell just because they exist. Yeah, and the thing is that now no one is religious here. It's a very lay country. No one believes in anything, but still they're scared of the paranormal very much. Even my friends here that have nothing to do with horror, when I talk about something that I do, or they are all like, okay, I don't want to know. It's okay. I'm not gonna sleep at night. I don't want to see it. Everyone around me. I mean, I wanted to go to watch Smile in the movies with someone, and I couldn't because I couldn't find one single person that wanted to go with me. Because they said they just can't bear with it. And I don't know if there's some kind of I don't know, a kind of product from that religious influence that is still in people's minds, like the demons, the ghosts, the paranormal. They're just so scared of it, and it's difficult to understand why.
That was a pretty good explanation why. I can definitely understand. I mean, we have those influences and those things of people in the United States, who find it
Mm-hmm.
kind of gross and everything else and a little off putting. So I know that Zach grew up with horror, so it's there hasn't been a moment in his life where horror hasn't been around. So I'm sure he's had a lot of interesting things. But I think I would mention though that the United States is a little bit more it's a little bit more in the mainstream, than other places, but still kind of the redheaded stepchild of media in general. I don't know, Zach, if is that kind of your perspective as well?
I mean, for
Yes.
me, like I said, I've been thrust into the horror genre my entire life. I grew up with these movies. My family's been okay with them, and even most of my friends. Like I showed these movies to my friends growing up, and they're like, "Oh, this is cool." So, like when I hear
Yeah.
like, especially in other countries that people didn't grow up like that, I'm like, I find it interesting. Or even when I show some of my newer friends who I meet at like work and through college, and I show and like they'll see like a little bit of blood just come out from a cut, and they're like, "Oh my god, that's horrifying." I'm like, "This ain't nothing."
Yeah.
Really?
Like
Yeah.
when I hear those reactions, I always get like, "Huh, that's interesting." I mean, that's baby frolic compared to what I'm used to and what most of my other
Yes.
buddies are used to. So yeah, it's just that's a foreign concept to me, not being used to like horror, metal, blood, guts, gore, death, destruction, all that. Like if you're not used to that, then I go,
or
okay.
or
Yes.
any of the darker aspects of life in general, like doing anything of the macabre or anything of the darker nature. The like my
Mm-hmm.
my life has always been this constant battle of light versus dark. Which is it's not surprising that I became the fan
Yeah.
of horror that I am.
Mm-hmm.
The so and that's always an interesting notion. Have you gotten so now that you've kind of discovered we'll put a stamp in that for a second. How did the world of like podcasting and interviewing people kind of come in the fold to you? Obviously you mentioned a little bit earlier about how you want to try to bring some of this culture to your country,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm very curious on how this why you took it upon yourself to go this direction within interviewing people.
I have to admit that I've taken time because I wasn't confident enough to do it. The first reason is because, as you can see, English is not my language. So I wasn't feeling confident enough to interview people because you always have this insecurity, and when I want to express, I'm never I'm translating in my mind everything I want to say all the time because I think in my language.
Sure.
So I think I've been with TBM like 5 years, and I started the podcast 1 year ago.
Wow.
So it really took me time to say, okay, I'm just going to do it, and they can just understand that sometimes I made up words.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The and then if
Yes,
I'm not mistaken, by I you were doing a lot of written stuff as well. Before this, you were
yes,
doing reviews and commentary and things of
yes,
that nature. So how did that even? Because because obviously you only did the interviewing about a year ago, but now you talked about like going back 5 years now of doing the actual
yes.
website. So how did that kind of begin for you? The what were some of the early ideas, and how did it come to fruition?
Hmm. Well, I wish I had a glamorous answer for this, but the real reason why I started with TBM Online was because I found myself alone with my 1-year-old daughter. And that was the reason. I couldn't go out to for a regular job because I had to be with her, but I had to pay bills, and I thought, okay, we have to do something. So I just started like exploring online, what things I could do, and I just blindly completely started TVM, talking to authors, trying to contact with people, like no shame adding people on Facebook like authors. If you go to my Facebook, it says in April 2017. I mean, I started my Facebook that day just to add people in the community. I have like 2,000 people in there, and 10 are people that I actually have here near to me, like
Okay.
in my real life. The rest are all from the horror community. Started adding people, talking to them, talking to authors, making connections. Like when I need to build something and I need to build it fast, and that's how I started. That's the main reason. I mean, I had the love for horror and I had the love for people and to making connections, but the real reason was that I was alone with her and needed to build something. And that's how it all started, really, and started taking shape.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, that's very very cool, and then obviously with the goal of bringing a more of a horror awareness to your country and to possibly most of Europe. Hopefully, the although it sounds like they got pretty good coverage in other places, but Spain's a work in progress. The
Yeah, it is.
so it's very interesting. So um and that's so fascinating that you just said I'm just gonna start doing it. I'm just gonna this is I love horror and I'm just gonna start interviewing people and everything else. What were some of your first guests that you were on and maybe what were some of your initial struggles and finding your footing and what are some stories of that kind of caliber?
Ah, yes. I was so. I mean, when you have to do something, you pretend you're confident, but you're not.
Every day.
And yes, you make lots of mistakes because the thing is that I had no idea how to run a website. I had no idea of graphic design, how to edit videos, because I have a degree in chemistry. That's my study. So it has nothing to do with what this actually meant, because I couldn't work on chemistry because of that, because I couldn't be out, because I
Hmm.
was alone with her. So I just completely rejected that. Like, okay, I can't do this. So I'm going to focus on this. But I have no idea how to make graphics, how to make trailers, how to make anything. And I spent lots of nights on YouTube tutorials. I know it sounds so sad, but it's the
Oh
truth.
my God!
I
No, no,
was
no!
a
Hold on, just a second. I learned how to tie a tie on YouTube. All right, my father tried to teach me like 5 times on how to do this, and it's like, fuck you, kid, I'm done. You figure it out yourself. And then I was like, I'm gonna go on YouTube and go check it out.
yes,
So never
exactly.
ever. And by the way, every time that we're editing and everything else, and especially me because I don't know anything about editing, but I do it anyway. I go on YouTube and go
Yeah.
watch tutorials. And don't think for a second, even Mr. Professional over here, our resident post guy, doesn't go on YouTube and go look up tutorials. He might not admit it, but he does it. I know he does it.
YouTube taught me more than school.
They exactly.
I feel
So
better now.
yeah, so never be embarrassed about doing YouTube tutorials. They're very effective
I feel
and
much better
free and
now.
free and free. They are free. So never
Yes.
never give yourself a hard time about that.
Yes. So that's how I learned everything. How to use Photoshop, how to make trailers, how to make because and I started just promoting some people like because I grew in that moment it seems so silly, but 5 years ago it was much easier to grow up a social platform. For example, I grew my Twitter. At Twitter I have like 23, I think 23,000 followers on Twitter. I built that in a year. It's not, I mean, and it's because it was much easier, like Instagram, everything. And I just started promoting people that were happy with it and helping them. I did a lot of free stuff, like helping people for free because I needed the connections. I needed the contacts and everything. So the way you build a community is just helping each other. And I helped a lot of people. I made a lot of connections, and slowly um, people started to appear, and the connections started to make more connections and more influence, and knowing other promoters also, because I have some websites that started more or less when I did, and it's like we helped each other, like, hey, how do I do this? So I've never competed with anyone. I have a lot of friends. I have sent clients and people to other websites. So it was hard because at the beginning it's difficult. It takes time to build something. but it's also been amazing in the sense of knowing lots of people. I mean, all the people I've worked with, collab, partnership, anything, that they are tons. I can't even remember how many people I've worked with. So it's been hard, but it's been also amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And and I think it's interesting, now that you've kind of delved into the horror community, what has your reaction been to the horror community by and large? Because we always joke that, for being a genre that's all about like, horrible, depravable things, they're the nicest, kindest, most willing to
Yes.
help community that we've ever been a part
Yes.
of and I've ever been a part of. So I'm curious, you're already saying yes, about what your experience has been like with the horror community this far.
The horror community is amazing. Absolutely amazing. They are game for everything. They are always happy to help, happy to share. I mean, it's and I know because I also have this comparison because um for one project that we had once, I had to reach out to people in the fantasy community. We
Hmm.
talk about fantasy community like it's another universe. I had to send a rocket to the moon. But but the thing is that I just like in the horror community, any of the you say like Facebook, for example,
Mm.
you get to a horror group and you say, "Hey, I'm featuring people on the website. Just drop your links and I will share you around." And everyone is game. In 2 minutes, you have 200 comments like, "Hey, thank you. This is my thing." Okay, you do that in a fantasy group, and you get comments like, why?
It's just that hardcore. Why? What are you up to?
Why dot 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 question mark.
I'm
So
like,
they are
yo, if
like
you're gonna
that, and it
share,
was like,
here.
Yeah, it's
yes,
silly.
because I can, because I want to share, cool content. But how much is going to? No, that's not how much. I'm just going to share. No, nothing. There's nothing to. I mean, I backed off like, okay, this is the first and last time that I'm in a fantasy group.
That's just crazy. Like,
Yes,
and also too is I'm sure it makes you feel good because you're kind of as you described, kind of on an island right now. So like I'm sure it's made you
yes,
feel much more vindicated of having that community readily available at your
yeah.
fingertips. So and having them around.
Yes, yes, exactly. It's like when you travel somewhere else and you get home. When I step on Barcelona, it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
I hear my language again.
No,
So,
absolutely. And I'm sure do that with metal music as well. Both of us being huge fans of metal, is pretty dope. And then in horror and metal got a lot in common. They tend to blend
yes,
real well together. I mean, that was always the often thing. If metal was a genre of film, it'd be horror. The or hardcore action. I mean, you got Rob Zombie. You have Slayer,
yeah.
which is Zach's favorite. The you have Rammstein,
Oh,
which is either horror or porno, depending on which video you're watching. The if I'm lying, I'm dying. That is very true. But another band I only want to see in Germany because when they come over to the States they can't do all the things that they normally do. I want to see them in their element. So which
yeah.
is very cool. So what have been some of the really cool people that you've interviewed that really stick out in your head, maybe on in the written form, but then also in the podcast form? What are some really cool people that you're like, man, that was a really cool person that I interviewed, and they provided a lot of good detail.
Mm, I think now I'm I'm thinking. um, I think one of the funniest people I have interviewed, because I've interviewed a lot of people in the indie community, is William Sterling, which is a horror author, but he's do you know these people that only talking he's funny? You know, I loved the whole interview. He has a lot of books out. He has an amazing embracement from the audience. He was extremely funny, and he also likes video games, which I do too. So we talked about nothing that we had to talk about. We ended up talking about video games, and I think that was one of the funniest interviews I've had. And then also with Chris McCauley. Chris McCauley, I don't know if you know him.
I am not familiar.
He works with Dr. Stoker. He's one of the founders of Stoker Bars.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and he's worked as a script writer for Doctor Who,
Ooh,
and
very
Star
nice.
Trek also. Yes, I mean he's a very interesting person. We've made like many videos together because I was helping him with some Kickstarters. They're making some new things for Dracula now with Dr. Stoker, and he's a very funny person. He has a lot of and another cool thing that I loved he did is on Terminator, the video game.
Oh,
He's one of the people working on the video game in Terminator. Yeah, and and he's so fun, so kind, so loving. He was an amazing person to interview. Yeah.
You certainly perked Zach's ear when he heard the Terminator game, so I'm sure he has questions.
was it the latest Terminator game made by Trayon?
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome! I loved that game so much. Years
I'll
of
send Chris
shitty
your way.
Oh yeah, no, dude, years of shitty Terminator games. That one came out. I'm like, this is amazing. Even the laser sounds are legit. Yes. God, I love that game so much. Fully recommend it to any Terminator fan out there. Great game.
Yeah, I gotta get on that. The
You really do.
I know. I'm behind. The so no. Yeah, you'll never meet a bigger. So Zach has a few like staples that are like very important to him. Like it's Predator, Terminator, Alien, and then Jason from Friday the 13th.
Oh, Alien.
Those are the staples for him. Like of important experiences. So anything Terminator related is gonna perk your ears, good or bad. And there's a lot of bad, unfortunately. But we don't talk about the bad. we don't ever mention Genesis.
No.
The pain that's in his eyes is just so palpable. Just so palpable.
Let's move on to good stuff.
Let's move on to good stuff. So so now that you've switched over into your video, what are some things that you've learned? Because podcasting is such an interesting art form. It's a very different type of thing. So I'm very curious on what have you learned, through the course of doing this that maybe you didn't think about before.
What I have learned which is funny because you can have a conversation with someone like having a coffee, that if someone was recording, it would make an amazing podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a camera recording you, it's different. That's not that easy. Like you have this anxiety on you. So my first videos are awful they are because I'm too nervous. Like the people I have interviewed or talked to, they have always been amazing because the horror community is just like that. They are just happy to be there. They are happy you are taking the time to be with them, to edit the video, to talk about them. But still, I was so nervous. I think, again, because the language does a lot. If it was in one of my languages, I would be more relaxed. Like you can say, I can say everything that it's in my mind because it's not my language. So it's more difficult. That's been a handicap for me. But then I have learned slowly to turn interviews into conversations. Like they can talk about their work and they can talk about what they do, but we can do it into a conversation. It doesn't have to be like a cold interview. um I'm I'm never cold because I'm a very smiley person. I always laugh with everything. So all my interviews, I'm always like that. I can't help it, and I also learn to make fun of myself. Like I say things wrong all the time. There are words that I can't pronounce all the time. And one of the things I learned to do is when I edit my videos, I don't hide my mistakes, but I underline them. I highlight them. Like I take like these little pieces of the video and I repeat it with the thing I said wrong. Like, yes, I know I said this wrong. I'm sorry. So I learned that. I learned to be more relieved, to make fun of myself. And if I say something wrong, I do, and I'm sorry, and they're always so kind. More or less, everyone can understand me.
Yeah, we got you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we got you. You're all good. The which is awesome. No, because it's a very interesting art form. Is turning a interview into a conversation. It's often sometimes
Yes.
a little difficult, but asking those questions often gets the point across. When it comes to your podcast, what's our question is how has horror entered your life, and everything. That's our famous question. What are some really good questions that you've been able to get some really good feedback from, and like get a conversation really going? What are some of your favorites to really get into the conversation mode as you described it?
Mm, I think that what puts people in conversation mode many times is to talk about their childhood. For example, talking about the fears they had in their childhood. Also, what I like to know about people is how has horror not influenced, I don't like the word influence because it seems that I'm talking about music, or um, affected them in a good way. Like, I think that horror is a way of facing your fears. Like, fantasy blocks your traumas and makes them worse because it creates like a parallel world where you can hide from your traumas. While I'm believing that there's a world of fairies and elves, I'm not looking at my traumas and my fears. But horror throws your fears at your face. It's like, there you are. Are you afraid of this? Just take it, catch it. you know so I think that's why the horror community, it's healthier and funnier and has no taboos. So I like to know that about the people I interview, like how horror helps your health, your mental health, your fears. How have you faced your nightmares through horror, through being a creator, either if it's a filmmaker, a musician, a writer. So I think that sets people a lot for a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think excuse me. I think sorry about
Breathe,
that.
Mark.
I don't know why.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm okay now. So I don't know. I think that's probably why most people in the horror community are so nice, because they're so well adjusted, because they've already faced their fears. And it's something interesting. One of our old guests brought up, I thought it was fascinating, but was there's another part of this too, is that fear is universal. It's part of the lizard brain. Like it's one of the things that like
Yeah.
isn't learned. It's actually a part of our DNA when we're born. A child can feel elements of fear before they're ever taught anything. So I imagine that that's something that gets brought up too with a lot of your
Yes.
conversations, is that
Hmm.
there's a primalness to it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Um, I think that not blocking the instinctive factors of our mind is what makes us healthy. And I think it's always healthy to be able to, um, like the what we were saying before. People here are very scared. I don't want to watch this because I'm scared of it. If I don't see it, it doesn't exist. If I don't hear it, it's not happening. It's this kind of behavior.
Hear no evil,
So you're
speak no evil,
scared.
see no evil.
Exactly. That's it. So I think that's one of the reasons why the horror community is so healthy. You can just joke about anything. I mean, my humor is black as coal. I can joke about anything, and that's something that you cannot do in front of everyone. But you can do it in the horror community. You just can joke about anything. So like in on social media, sometimes I had someone like attacking because they didn't like a meme or something funny I said. It's like, you don't even like horror, what you doing here?
What, I'm sorry, who are you? It becomes like the Mean Girls, like you don't even go here. Why are you here?
Yes.
So Zach, did you? I heard you. Did you want anything to add to that primal fear portion?
No.
Zach's already conquered his fears, so he doesn't have to worry about anything.
I swam with sharks a month ago. I think I've conquered everything.
Yeah, that was probably one of his early fears. You know what? I wanted to talk to you a little bit about you. I wanted to say thank you publicly. Actually, you wrote a wonderful review for us for the interview with Damon, the creator of Slasher, on multiple different things. I really wanted to say thank you publicly for the nice words that you said, and I know Zach appreciates the same as well.
Absolutely.
I remember I actually screenshotted it and I sent it. I was like, well, somebody appreciates what we're doing. So I wanted to thank you publicly on the podcast for that very nice review. And I also wanted to get your take on, some of the subjects that we were talking about within that about the horror community and like what Damon's doing, for the horror community with Slasher. What has been your experience within Slasher, and how do maybe you can expand upon the comment that you left on our interview.
Well, I think that Slasher is, um I mean, just to start off, Damon is just so amazing, just himself as a person, as a businessman, as a horror fan. I mean, he has this wide vision of things that always amazes me. And he wants a safe space for the horror community, and that's what he aims for. And Slasher, it's exactly that. He wants no algorithm. He wants no one to be famous just because. Like, for example, in Facebook, the more likes something gets, the more it escalates on the feeds,
Sure.
right? That doesn't happen in a slasher. It's how you call it, like a timing thing. It just the chronologic. If you have 1,000 likes, you don't go the first. The person that has said, "Hey, good morning, hello everyone," it's visible exactly the same. He wants a spot for everyone, and he is very, and not worried is not the word. Very that he takes care of it, that everyone is safe, to take care of all the complaints. Like he always says, anyone that has any issue, just message me. Like today, I was on a slasher and I had this girl saying, "Hey, I have a problem with the messages, but I don't remember who I have to message." And she meant Damon, because he's always saying, "Hey, message me if you need anything." And I answer, "You have to message Damon." And he answered just below me, because I have tagged him, saying, "Hey, yes, we're solving this." I mean, he's everywhere. He cares a lot for people, and he wants to make a lot of amazing things in the app. Um, I really think that this is going to be very big. Now it is, but I think that the fact that he doesn't see it to take any profit of it, but to create a world for the horror community, because we deserve it. It's going to be an amazing place to be in, and I think that people are going to appreciate it very much.
No, I wholeheartedly agree, and in the in the comment. I know that you were, very appreciative of talking about culture and talking about how that this is propelling it into the mainstream. And I often talk about how, and this is more of an American thing than anything. I don't know, but I don't know. It maybe be stretching out past America, but we seem to be the only last line of defense when it comes to the innovation of culture.
Yes.
We're the only ones that are actually pushing boundaries and pushing social taboos in multiple different
Yes.
directions, which is fabulous. So I was wondering how what your thoughts were on that, and in that part of the discussion about horror being the last one to actually like keep new innovation within culture alive.
Hmm. Yes, I think horror is the one that can speak up. I think because it's the one going through human feelings, human emotions, human fears. So um, I think actually now you make me think that I think that's why it's so important to push the underground horror, because that's the visceral one, the one that it's not sold to commercial purposes, that doesn't have to please anyone. The horror that doesn't want to please anyone, that's a good horror, because that's the organic, the visceral one. And that's why I love so much underground horror, because you watch the movies they make, the commercial ones. Like sometimes I joke about like the last Candyman that they made. They've asked me sometimes on videos and that, what do I think of it? And I think he's just too handsome to be scary. Like you can't be scared by that Candyman. And what I really mean is that it's not scary at all. It's not a scary movie. It turned into a dialogue about racism and all of that, but nothing else, which is okay. Have nothing. I mean, I have nothing against that speech, but again, it's not what the horror audience is looking for. When I watch indie films, they are so visceral, So maybe they don't have the money, they don't have the best music, maybe they don't have the best cameras to do it. But look at the Blair Witch Project. I mean, what kind of cameras did they need to do that? And it's still a legend. So I think that horror has a lot to say. And the last years, the underground horror has been growing and growing. And I think we're going to make a lot of noise in the following years.
Oh yeah, I think Terrifier is actually the shot across the bow. If I'm going to be honest, I think that's the first. I think that's the first shot. I think the people are going, whoa, that's something. Which is pretty cool.
Yes,
The
exactly. I've heard a lot of different things about the last Terrifier. I don't know. There's just a lot of people loved it, and some people hated it. Some others thought that it was too long. They didn't finish it.
but ultimately at the end of the day, they it got them talking. And I
Yeah.
think that's whether you love or hate something and everything. I mean, I joke all the time. I'm like, there are things that are awful that have brought so much joy to me. I joke about Batman and Robin. It's not horror, but well, it's kind of horror. I mean, that movie has brought so much joy to my life, and us making fun of Maximum Overdrive and how high Stephen King was when he made it. Like, I mean, like that's
Yeah.
So even if it's something that's really, really bad, it's still fun to talk about it. Like, it's still fun
Yes.
to
Yes.
to bullshit about it. So
Yes.
so all right, but so I think this is actually a perfect opportunity for us to get to the question of the podcast, and that's where we go ahead and start to wrap things up. What I do is I ask a question to everybody on something that they would love, and it's something that I make up in my head as time goes on.
Yes.
We kind of rounded out with that. It's the guest has the option to go first, or they can pass. It's tradition for the guest to go first. So the question is this, because we have some podcasters on. Who is somebody that you would love to have a podcast interview with? It could be anybody from the horror community, anybody at all. Who is somebody that you
Ash
would?
Williams.
Who was that?
Bruce Campbell.
Oh, you stole mine.
Absolutely. I mean, he's the funniest guy ever. I would love it.
What would you ask him?
Oh, um, I'm not sure I would ask. I mean, I think I would have a conversation with him more than ask anything. I mean, I'm love The Evil Dead so much. I mean, I think it's made me laugh so much. Um, I have like this fond feeling, you know.
That's awesome.
So yes, I think I would just ask him about the fun he had doing those films, and also that the first one was meant to be a serious one, but it was so awful that people just talk it like a comedy and made the next as a comedy because it just worked like that. I think I would just ask him about that.
Nice. That's awesome. That's awesome. Zach.
I'm just gonna say Kane Hodder because I would love to not only do a podcast with him but drink while we're doing it. I don't know why that's where my mind is going right now, but yeah, Kane Hodder, cause best Jason, really badass actor, really badass dude. The dude's awesome. I met him at Days of the Dead last year. Great guy, a lot of fun, really cool. So yeah, I would just
Awesome.
love to meet him, do a podcast with him, and
Yes.
yeah. So how about you, Mark?
One is alive and one unfortunately has been passed away, so I'd have to go in a time machine to go do it. The one that has passed away would be Wes Craven. Would love to talk to him, and then maybe like as a runner-up, Kevin Williamson, who wrote Scream. I would love to chat with them, and then also the one I would love to interview just because it'd be so much fun is Jeffrey Combs from Reanimator, and a couple other movies that'd be fucking wild. I would love to interview him and talk to him about the Reanimator shit and and
Yes.
tell him about his different career stuff. So I would absolutely love to interview him. But definitely, something that would have been really special to me, though, will be interviewing Wes Craven. That would have been really cool just to talk to him about the history and all the things that he went through and all the different productions that he's done and just this beautiful evolution of his career. It would have been really really cool to see him. It's sad that he's since passed. But he left a hell of a legacy. In so many ways. So many ways. So on that note, this is your opportunity to look directly into camera and plug yourself and plug all the wonderful social medias and places people can find your podcast and your website and all the articles that you're currently working on. So without further ado, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, well, TBM can be found anywhere. You type TBM horror, it's our tag everywhere. So TikTok, Instagram, anywhere you can find us. And we have lots of fun in there. Metal, video games, because I'm a video game freak, so I take care of that. Indie films, books. We have lots of books of indie books you haven't heard about yet. Interviews, the podcast. I mean, we just have fun and try to everyone to have fun with us. So just join us and join the crew.
And thank you all for checking out this episode of the Nightmares Podcast. You can find us wherever podcasts can be found: YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, all those great ones. And if you are watching on YouTube, if you could be so awesome to stab that like button, smash that subscribe, and click that little dingy bell to be notified every time we drop amazing content right here on MHN. And of course, you can find us on our social medias on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and
Slasher.
the application for all things horror, and you can find our lovely guest on Slasher as well. And then what's your Slasher handle on there?
Mar, my name, just
Awesome.
Mar.
Easy to remember and everything else. So
Yes.
thank you so much, and we'll see you next time on the Nightmares Podcast. Bye, guys.